Dear brothers and sisters, it is human experience that we all struggle with words when we have to communicate something important. We may falter, stammer, mumble, or clear the throat because we don't have the right words to express. Think of the experience of someone falling in love and having to communicate it to his beloved. The truth often bumps into the limits of language. Then we have to search for similes and say, it is as if, or it is like this, or like that. When Jesus spoke about the kingdom of God, he never said what it actually was. He only said what it was like. He tried to begin with what was familiar. The mystery of the kingdom of God is so baffling that we can only say what it is like, how similar it is to our experiences of ordinary life. It is also true that words cannot exhaust its mystery. The gospel says that Jesus would not speak to the crowds except in parables, but he explained everything to his disciples while he was with them. There is much more to the kingdom of God that one can teach. Let us look at the parables of today. In the first parable, Jesus compares the kingdom of God to what happens when a farmer sows seeds in his field. He sows the seed and waits patiently. The crop has its own cycle of growth and its own rhythm, and the farmer does not know how it all happens. It is the miracle of growth in nature. You cannot push it or force it. It may seem that nothing is really happening. The seed sprouts and grows on its own and in its own silence. Even if the farmer stays awake and worries at night, the crop would not improve because the harvest cannot be rushed. So it is with the kingdom of God. Those who are restless for instant results cannot make the kingdom appear or see its advent. The kingdom belongs to God and it will appear in God's own appointed time. In the second parable, Jesus compares the kingdom to a mustard seed that grows into a large bush so that the birds of the air can come and take shelter in its branches. Jesus is making a contrast between the smallness of the seed and the exuberance of its growth. Small beginnings bring us to greater ends. Littleness is no indication of the final achievement. The small mustard seed becomes a shelter for the birds of the air. Humble beginnings lead to greater achievement. All this is God's work. All this is God's doing and not human agency. Note that the birds of the air is a Jewish expression for Gentiles. The kingdom of God is for all people. It is a space of inclusiveness for everyone. The kingdom, therefore, is a sign of God's power. God works while we are asleep, doubtful, or unaware that God is really accomplishing great wonders behind the scenes. The first reading from Prophet Ezekiel today is set against the background of the Babylonian captivity. People had no hope. Their trust had collapsed. Can God be called faithful in the midst of this tragedy? They asked. The Corinthian community in the second reading was facing persecution. As they lost courage, the same doubts surfaced in their hearts as well. Where are God's promises? Paul assures them, we walk by faith and not by sight. The kingdom of God grows and will continue to grow in invisible ways. It is God who guarantees that it will grow on its own accord. We do not have to fall into cynicism or despair. God is the guarantee of your dreams and of your future. They have their place in His kingdom. Therefore, never despair, never lose heart. There was a young man who had been diagnosed with a terminal illness and had been given 3 months to live. But he was totally serene at the prospect of dying. As he was getting his things in order, he contacted the parish priest and had him come over to his house to discuss certain details of his final wishes. He told him which songs he wanted to be sung at his funeral, what scriptures he would like to be read, and what outfit he wanted to be buried in, and so on. Everything was in order, and the priest was preparing to leave when the young man suddenly remembered something very important to him. There is one more thing, Father, he said excitedly. What's that? Came the priest's reply. This is important, the young man continued. I want to be buried with a fork in my right hand. The priest stood looking at the young man, not knowing quite what to say. That surprises you, isn't it? The young man asked. Well, to be honest, I am puzzled at your request, said the priest. The young man explained. I always remember during any dinner in my childhood, when the dishes of the main course were being cleared, my grandmother would inevitably lean over and tell me, keep your fork. That was her way of saying that my favorite part was coming. Velvety chocolate cake, deep dish apple pie, something wonderful, tasty and sweet. So just want people to see me there in that casket with a fork in my right hand. And I want to tell them, keep your fork. The best part is yet to come. The priest's eyes welled up with tears of joy as he hugged the young man and said goodbye. At the funeral, people were walking by the young man's casket, and all of them saw what he was wearing and the fork placed in his right hand. Over and over, The priest heard the whisper, "What's with the fork?" And over he smiled. During the message, the priest told the people of the conversation he had with the young man shortly before he died. He told them about the fork and what it symbolized for him. The young man was right. This is what the kingdom teaches us. We never despair because God is in control. We rejoice over God's work. God is our surprise. The best is yet to come.